it was interesting, experiment for me that I should go for it and have the community which is already built by Cynthia. So at that time we have almost 2,500 people, the members. However, after teaching at Berkeley last year, I realized design thinking is very limited. So I should make it a little bit more open, more inclusive when it comes to product design. So I renamed this this meetup, and this is what we have now. So it's more about like product, like that's why we have also line basically who can talk about more uh, that how to think from, like how they think from product, about the product basically. So this is why we are calling it West Coast product people. Obviously we are in the West Coast, so it's all about product, right? Like design management and what have you. So how this all started, these are my amazing students, because in 2020 I met with Namratha, Carolina, Daria, right, 30 more students. And that was my first cohort at UC Berkeley, teaching them UX UI bootcamp. And it was a fun ride, like seeing myself in them. When I started my career, I did not have that kind of utilities and resources in 2008. But now we have tons of resources to learn UX. So that's how I actually I invited a couple of students. I say, hey, you know what, whoever wants to be part of this meetup idea, please join me. It will be fun because I would love to give them the boost. That's the whole intention is. That's our story. So now we have today, this is Modestar, myself. I'm a lead product designer at Wells Fargo. Namrata, she's a UX UI designer. Carolina, she's a product designer, and Daria, she's also a product designer. So you will meet and greet with them in the breakout room. They will introduce themselves to you all, and they are also looking for the opportunities. So if you have something, please do let them know. So awesome. Now I will hand over Mike. But before handing it over to him, I approached Theo Johnson, I guess in 2019, last quarter of 2019, because he shouted out loud on profile that, hey, I got the job as a UX researcher at the world largest music industry company. I said, oh, wow, that's cool. So tell me more about it. So I was like, I asked for his portfolio, but my whole intention was like, if I can share his portfolio to my students, right? So, and then I thought, why don't I invite him basically at Meetup, and he can talk about his journey. So, who is Theo? Theo is the UX researcher, right? Working at the world largest music entertainment company, where he's leading the UX research practice in data and analytics, and he enjoy utilizing intuitive research tools and his expertise in UXR to create successful UX research practices. So, Leo, the mic is yours.
Awesome. Thanks for the introduction. So, yeah, do you want me to just I can start it off and just talk a little bit about my career, just a little bit about myself.
Yes.
So yes, right now, I work for Sony Music. I'm the lead researcher for Sony Music Entertainment, data and analytics, and I actually come from a cognitive science background. I'm a big psych guy. I got my undergraduate degree in cognitive psychology. Got a master's in human-computer interaction, both from SUNY Oswego. It's if anybody's been in New York, if you've ever been to Syracuse or a little bit north of Syracuse, so go Oswego State. So I do have two IEEE virtual reality publications. I went to Ireland and presented my first publication in virtual reality gaming user experience, and my second publication at Yale University, where he studied ergonomics and gaming controllers in VR. And I have two pending publications in augmented reality and VR. Also, I have a background in UX design. I've taken courses at the UX Design Institute as well, on top of having a master's in human-computer interaction. And I am the co-creator of a tabletop game, Pirates and Lasers, courtesy of Blinks. I competed at the Microsoft Global Game Jam in 2020. So I have been involved in game jams. I've been involved in design workshops and seminars. yeah, obviously that's a little bit about me. I'm a musician. As you can see, I have my guitar right here. It's always next to me. I love music. I bowl. I'm bowl part-time on the professional bowlers tour. I'm actually bowling this weekend in Wisconsin for a really big tournament. Wish me luck. And yeah, like I said, I love music. I'm an artist. I'm a musician. I love UX. UXR is fantastic. Yeah, and that's just a little bit about my background. Sarah, it's up to you if you want me to go into my previous roles. I could talk about that a little bit too.
Please, exactly, how did you started this journey and how did you end up working for Sony basically? So walk us
Yeah.
through.
In my undergraduate degree, so this goes back a couple years ago, or a few years ago actually. I always knew like to push myself. Like I was always kind of like I always worked really hard, but sometimes I worked a little too hard. But we all have to know our limitations. And as an undergraduate, I really like statistics and I really love neuroscience, but also love technology. So I was trying to find, I was thinking, okay, I want to do a master's degree, right? I really want to do a master's degree in something. And at the end of my undergraduate degree, the chairman of human computer interaction, I met him, Damien Schofield. He goes, "Hey, Theo, I think you'd really like, UX research." And I'm like, "What's that?" So I actually took a graduate seminar in gaming and virtual reality in my last semester of my undergraduate degree. Did really well in the class, got an A. I'm like, this is great. And believe it or not, that semester is where I worked on that paper for Ireland. So I actually got my paper published before I was even a master's student. Then, of course, I continued my career and, I went in and took the master's degree in human computer interaction. I always, participated in like group organization stuff for the college. And then obviously after that, I had my first internship working at the New York State Parks, where I got to work firsthand with UX research and design. I actually created a augmented reality tour guide system. You use a booklet. It's a third-party application called Artivive. So it's a booklet that tells a story about a historical site. So my job, and obviously working as an intern, there was like things you had to do, class requirements, but I was firsthand able to work with users and be able to work with the stakeholder at New York State Parks. From there, that kind of told me this is what I love. I love UXR. I love solving complex problems. And obviously after that, I worked at Blexer doing iGaming. So we had the world's largest online gaming casino community. And I was the user researcher for them. That was in Malta, so it was remote. So all of these jobs, by the way, are remote. So just to keep this in mind, besides New York State Parks, that was the only role I worked in person on. After I worked at Blexer, I worked at Meyer as a UX researcher. I'd say that I was more of the lead researcher there. I worked on the e-commerce, so I did all the research testing and planning development, KPI management, everything for the team. And I actually built out their UX research system and their testing cadence and all the proper practices. Now as a contractor, and now I'm at Sony. So, I can't go into what I do at Sony, but obviously, just in general, research in general is something that I do love. But all your basic practicalities of research is, what I do at Sony, but you know what I mean? That makes
Wonderful.
sense.
I was going through your basically LinkedIn profile, and also looking at your posts, what did I see that you mentioned something related to user testing is always valuable. So there's one thing which is like open-ended question, and like you can see what they're going through. And then when we say moderated user testing, can you put some little what do you mean by that, and how one can, like, how it's valuable basically? Aren't
Yeah.
we
So
confining them?
Yeah, so you mentioned confining them. So I wouldn't say exactly say confining them, right? As long as you give them that proper introduction, you create your scripts, you're organized. As you go through and do a moderated user test, I always have scripts that I make. I always kind of work together with the product managers or whoever I'm, with doing this. And also it depends on what tools you're using. Get a little more in depth on moderated testing, right? So with moderated testing, yes, you're going to be with the user. You're asking to do specific tasks. tell them how they feel, but you want them to feel comfortable, right? So you don't want to like be looking over the shoulder and be like, hey, do this task, you know. No, you got to make it feel comfortable. You know, as a researcher, that was one of my things that I love. I mean, I love working with people, making it feel comfortable, right? So you talk about, you know, unmoderated testing, right? You can just send that off. They do a test, you know, user Zoom Go, user testing, you know, they have all these different platforms, right? That's a whole different scenario. If you want to do like feature testing and kick something out the door really fast, you're testing what, 50 users or doing a validation test. Let's do unmoderated testing. You know, let's validate what we did for the qualitative stuff, which is moderated. So the moderated testing is very qualitative, very, you know, usually with the sessions, you record them, right? You can pull out data bits, you can pull out things they say, you can record the sessions. And obviously all these testing tools, right? All these cool gizmos they have out there now, they do a lot of work for you, you know, recording the scripts, you can pull data.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and that's important. You know, I think one thing, you know, yeah, there's a lot of great tools, but you know, being a researcher and being able to kind of work with the user and have users first perspective, you know, and giving them their space to talk is important.
Wonderful. So what I hear from you is like, if we need a qualitative data feedback, then the moderate test is the best approach, basically, right?
Yes.
And if we're looking for the quantitative data, and if we want to test with more user, like 50 plus, then unmoderated is the best approach. And a very superb question, and I saw the plus one on this as well. And basically, my students also went through this process. It's about the remote user testing, giving this this pandemic, this quarantine thing going on. There are few things which like somebody should be in person, especially if you are building a hardware,
Mhm.
right? How one can do it remotely? Is it possible, like mail them, ship them, ask them to configure it, and then tell us more about your experience around this arena?
Yeah, so I'll be 100% honest with you. I'm not going to spit out lies or anything. So the testing I've done has been mostly with, you know, software related stuff, you know, anything like a piece of software. As far as hardware, that's interesting, you know, obviously not being there in person is a little tougher. But I would say with the remote world right now, you know, a lot of testing that I've done is pretty much, you know, they get access to a link, right? You know, obviously, let's just, for example, right, using user Zoom. I use user Zoom in my last role. It's a very easy tool to do user testing. You know, you make tasks on there. You have them go through a sequence, but you make sure that because it's remote, you give them kind of like a heads up. You got the obviously send out the email, right? Who we working with to send out the email? So obviously a marketing team or the customer experience team, right? Got to send out the email, make sure that they get there on time, set the rules. Hey, please test in a quiet place, blah, 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 blah. Because, you know, that's where you get into like working remotely. You can send out like a moderated test and you can meet up with them. You know, you could be in the video and then obviously you're watching them do their tasks. It really just depends on the scenario. You know, with e-commerce, there's times where, you know, we would send out something, you just send out a test and you just watch, you know, you would record the session, right? Have them go through a task flow, right? And then maybe do like 10 or 15 users and you'd see, wow, you know, X amount of users said this about it. Maybe we should move forward on this. Does that make sense? It's
Yeah.
a big question because I can go into more things, but um, from my perspective, right, and the things that I've tested, right, it's just been very, you know, software. We'll give them a prototype from Adobe XD or, you know, Marvel or something, right? We'd have them just test it. And then you'd have
So
obviously, you know,
yeah, no, this really makes sense. Even in the software, users sometimes are like struggling with like to set up or whatever, right?
yes.
So when we are doing the in-person test, so we can quickly help them out. So how did you tackle those those edge cases where user did not understand what they
Yeah. With that kind of situation, pretty much is really about the initial setup, sending out that email, you know, making sure that they have the required tools, following up with them. Let's say that it's 5 minutes past, right? Oh, the user's not here. Shoot them an email. Hey, we did see that you didn't come here. Is there any issues that we're not aware of that you need help with? I've had that happen a couple times. You know, communicating with them, providing a phone number, stuff like that. So, I mean, but really understanding the hardware,
okay.
and, you know, obviously if their system has the capabilities to do so, you know, it could be, you know, with testing, right?
Wonderful.
the moderated testing, I've done it both in like Zoom. I've done like the scrappy Zoom, just user interview style, qualitative stuff. And I've also done it where you use like user Zoom. So then in both situations.
Cool, wonderful. There's one more awesome question here, but I'll ask it later on.
Sure.
I'm curious about one of your posts, basically,
Sure.
where you said that that about Eddie Van Halen. So you said that he inspires you a lot. So tell us more. How did Eddie inspire you to be where you are at the moment?
Yeah. So ever since I was a kid, I was a big classic rock. I love classic rock. I do hear feedback in the mic here. I'm not sure if you're hearing that. You're good. So yeah, Eddie Van Halen, right? So I've always been into rock and metal music, but that guy can shred, and he breaks limits with the way he plays guitar. And it's a shame when he passed away. I was very devastated, because I looked up to him. I kind of put, my guitar playing. I can actually play a lot of Van Halen on my guitar. But he like really pushed me to be a better guitarist because like he was if you ever watch this guy live, he's up there jumping around, just jamming, having a good time. And even think about this, even if he makes a mistake, he keeps going, right? Because everyone makes mistakes, right? It's life. Only way we can learn is by making mistakes. And that's one thing, as a researcher is, we all make mistakes. As designers, we all make mistakes. As anybody, we all make mistakes. And I've
Man,
watched
this
a lot.
is a super awesome point. Basically,
Yeah.
if you make a mistake, just don't stop. Just course correct and keep moving forward. Awesome, good. Thank you. This is the jam.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So other than that, I mean, like I said, he's just really inspiring. I look up to other musicians as well. But music is an art, and I'm a very analytical person myself. So when it comes to like any rock music, and I could read music, I play classical, I play cello, I play bass, I play drums, play a lot of different instruments. And I kind of feel like the aspect of that music and creativity really helped me and push me with research and design because I'm just a very artistic person. And I mean, not saying it's for everybody, but for me, it just seems something that interests me. And I mean, that could inspire others. Maybe someone doesn't even know they're good at research and they end up doing a couple things, a couple qualitative things, and learn a little bit about UX. I'm like, wow, this is a lot of fun. That's what I love.
Wonderful. And there's a very interesting question we have, which is, thank you. I think it's from Freddie Cruz.
Hmm.
Uh, how well versed in statistics would you say our UX researchers should be? Any methods one should have a good grasp on?
Yeah. So with statistics, right? Of course, in my college classes, I was required to take psych statistics, doing just using SPSS, analyzing large sample sets. But it's more about like, okay, with these statistics, though, when do they become important, right? When you're working in the industry, p values, understanding delta values, right? Knowing what tests to use when. Are we going to use any within subjects ANOVAs? Are we going to be testing within conditions? Are we going to be doing between subjects, right? There's all these different methods with statistics, right? But it's about knowing when to apply what statistical method to what test and to what do you want to find. I know a lot of those bigger organizations, probably Google, Facebook, and all them, and even Microsoft, I'm sure they have like a lot more statistical stuff, testing and stuff that I've ever done, but as a background as a researcher, I think it's important to know your basic t-tests, be able to run system usability scores, and being able to really utilize just basic statistical methods and understanding values. And how do we know if our sample size is good enough to move forward, and knowing when a significant value is going to be good enough to push product. That's all comes from qualitative and then quantitative and validation. So it's kind of a whole cycle. But to answer your question, I mean, it's nice to brush up on your stat skills. It doesn't hurt, honestly. And it's going to help you for a lot of different things, especially if you're going on that kind of route, and analytics as well, for sure. Mm-hmm.
We have one more question, but before going to this question, let me ask you this. So what type of tools are beneficial for a UX? People usually ask me when I'm doing mentoring through ADP list that, what are the UXR related tool? I say, hey, Excel sheet and Word doc. But tell us, like, was in one of your posts, I I noticed that you were talking about the so if you can talk in general your tools and choices that you.
Yeah. So tools as UX researcher, right? Everyone has their niche. Everyone has what they love. There's a lot of good tools out there. So obviously, as a researcher, I do like to collab with the designers and do design workshops. Talk about research themes, new thematic analyses. Miro or Mural plus one. I always love doing that, analyzing qualitative data. That way you can get the team involved, doing workshops. Airtable, right? So you mentioned Airtable. Great place to house data and, find common insights and themes and be able to kind of like, match tables and do different user sets and see how many things you pulled out and how many occurrences were in one data set. It's really, really nice and easy to use. And the good thing about that too, right, is you can just download that as a CSV and just pop that baby right into Google Sheets. Easy sharing for the team if they don't have access to Airtable. But that's obviously one of my favorite things to use is Airtable. And other than that, that's I use a lot of other tools, but Airtable right now, for as far as repository, yeah, okay. But you're talking about testing tools, that's a whole other story. So
Yeah, no, talking more about the like repository, like storing data and data with the team collaboration mostly, right?
yeah. Yeah, so
Wonderful.
Miro is one of my favorites. So I actually had a chance to make my own little template for Miroverse, and I actually have used it in one of my previous roles too. So Miro is a great way to really share qualitative insights with the teams and really get the teams involved. And that's what you want, to get the team involved, product managers involved, everyone can really understand what's happening with your designs. That way, no one's left out in the process.
Awesome. And I think we are almost, at the time, but two last question. All right. So
Sure.
there's one question I saw regarding the from Lucy, basically. So she says her case studies are very, very, but it's been suggested to me that they should be more insight driven. To land on that.
Yeah, so let's see. I'm reading the question right now. It's like you're breaking up a little bit there on
Yeah.
your mic. So where do you land on that? So is this process oriented, but it suggested to me that they should be more insight driven. Yeah, so obviously how you do your process is great, right? And it's important, but insight driven is what do we learn from your findings, right? And how can we use your findings to move forward with what you found? And what recommendations can we make, pretty much based off of the research findings that you did go through. Process is great, right? But really understanding what we found and making it simple, right? Sometimes we get so much data, right? Like I've done this, right? Especially my master's degree, tons and tons of data. And it's just like, oh my gosh, how do I simplify this, right? So trying to find a way to simplify that data and really, really be really strong and like firm on this is what we found, right? And then this is the things that, went well, things that didn't go well. What do we do next, right? Give recommendations, bam, done, so it's always good to just be simple, but also be effective, especially if you're working in a large organization, right? Like a lot of these managers and stuff, they want to be able to go in and be like, okay, cool, awesome, this is good to go, sweet, got to the point, bam, done. If you spend a lot of time on your process, and not talking about your results, and what we learned, so that's something I had to learn as a researcher too. So some of the times I was doing something was very process oriented, and I had to like learn how to be really insight heavy. So
Wonderful. Wonderful. Last question.
sure.
What is your day like as a UX
Uh,
researcher in 2 minutes or in 1 minute? If you can summarize and then we have few more questions. What I will do, I will forward to you, and then on you may answer them later on tomorrow.
yeah. So a day in the life as a researcher. So I can't exactly discuss what I do, particularly at Sony, right? That's kind of something
From a generic perspective,
generic
like
perspective, right? So, go obviously depending on where I'm at, user testing. It could be user testing. I could be meeting with people, having meetings. I could be going through some different reports. I could be looking at some data heavy stuff. How's our the traffic coming along with some of the applications we're using. Obviously darn, I'm trying to think about it like me working right now with the stuff that I do, but I know I can't give any of that particularly. Research planning. So obviously planning out the research, working closely with different product managers and your designers, going to stand-ups, right? Daily stand-ups. Those are always fun. Meeting up with the teams. Maybe you work for a specific team, right? Maybe you got to go to that stand-up. Maybe you got to join them. Just, I guess, really depends on where you work. But for me, that's kind of what I do, but most of the day it's a lot of analyzing, a lot of preparing, a lot of going over qualitative videos, research videos, stuff like that. So yeah.
Wonderful. So I think we should let Theo go because it's about to be 10 p.m. at his end, right? Hey Theo, one quick thing.
Yeah, sure.
Can share your portfolio with the attendees because they will get inspiration from your portfolio, and it will be super helpful to them.
Yeah, sure. Do you want me to type it in right now, or do you have my link to my portfolio, or?
I have your link, so I'm just asking your permission. Then is it okay if I can send it over to them?
Yeah, and if any of you guys have any questions, you can share my email if you want, or you just message me on LinkedIn. My portfolio, if you guys have any questions on that, if you want any help in portfolio, I do plan on kind of doing a little bit more office hours on my Calendly in the next couple months, and I could do one-on-one sessions with everybody if you're interested. Just a couple tips and tricks. So yeah, feel
Wow,
free to
this
share it,
is
man.
good. Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you, Theo. You were our first speaker of 2021 at our meetup, and we are super excited. We really appreciate your time, especially coming up online from the East Coast side. So
Awesome. Well,
big applause to thank you so much, man.
thank you very much, everybody, and thanks for having me. And hope to see you guys again soon.
Yep.
Later. Bye.
Bye. Uh, guys. Now, thanks to Theo, we just heard him. Super awesome tips, I believe, and this session is getting recorded. What I will do, basically, I will open the breakout room. But before you guys go for a breakout room, this is our upcoming events. On Feb 11, we will have uh, Neurodiversity is a strength by Saskia. And then from Tom, we will have this, working with teams and teams. Actually, Tom was a the UX scientist, basically. So this will be a conversation with him. So I will be opening a breakout room. It will be for, let's say, what do you think? 20 minutes? Sounds good to you all right. And there you go. Opening a breakout room, and see you guys there. Hello, Heather.
I'm back. Thank you.
Yeah, I just opened the breakout room, so you can go ahead.